Hello and welcome to the Spinal Cord Injury Forum. My name is Jeannie Hoffman. I'm a rehabilitation psychologist here at the University of Washington, and I'm a co-director of the Northwest Regional Spinal Cord Injury System at the University of Washington. The forums, the video recordings, and all of our online media content are made possible by a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. The name just changed. It moved from Department of Education into Health and Human Services. So it's gonna take me a bit to get used to that additional name. So tonight we're actually so lucky to have a group of people who provide personal caregiving for individuals with spinal cord injury. And so we get perspective of the caregivers themselves. So our panel includes both hired caregivers as well as family members. And we have Charles, Amanda, Jeannie, and Laura. And on the front of this, I'm going to be asking questions, and then at the end we'll open it up. So if you could hold any of your questions to the end, I'd appreciate it. So thank you guys very much for coming. I really appreciate it. So Charles, if it's okay, I'd like to start with you. And the first thing I want to understand is just kind of tell me about, like, you know, who you work with right now. You don't have to give names, but in terms of like just level of injury, the kind of hours you work, those kind of things.
Okay. Well, I work with a quadriplegic. I do 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. So I get him up, make breakfast, get him dressed. Just basically get him ready to go, and then I'm off in 2 hours. So everything has to be like that. Mm-hmm. And then 2 hours in the evening. So he does his thing, and depending on the day, you know, sometimes we start at 7, sometimes we start at 9. Tonight we're starting at 10 because of this. And I guess that's it. He has two really, I think they're high mobility chairs that he uses, so he can do a lot of things on his own. Mm-hmm. Basically, I just have to do the things that require fine detail.
Right. And so in that, personal care, so you said get up, get dressed, kind of, that includes bathing, that includes bowel program, bladder management, all of those pieces as well?
We do bathing every other day, so 1 week we'll do 3 days, and next week we'll do 2 days. And it doesn't take very long. I found that sometimes it can take a long time, just depending on how the chair is working out, what kind of mood we're in, if everything's the way it should be. You know, sometimes you just get in a chair like this, you know, and what do? And I remember a few months ago, I did one of the latches on the sling wrong. And so he was like this, kind of, you know what I mean? And one of them had totally come off, and I had to literally pick it up and put it on the hook, you know? And I was lucky to do landscaping a couple of years ago and have the ability to know how to do something like that. But it was scary, but that's only happened once, you know, so.
And so the person that you provide care for, the 4 hours a day, the 2 hours and 2 hours is really all he requires for caregiving.
Yes, and sometimes less than that.
Yeah.
And sometimes a little more, just depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
I think the other morning we had a catheter situation where it just wouldn't work, you know. And I had to call the VA and talk to people and find out. And they just told me the basic things of it that I already knew, but I was willing to do them again because they were saying it out loud. So that was scary, but it worked out, you know, and that was fine. And there's little things, you know, like lowering the legs down, lowering the backs down, things that have to be done.
Yeah, so kind of a variety of different things. And are you pretty much the only caregiver?
During the week. He has another caregiver for 2 days.
Yeah, okay. So tell me a little bit about how long have you been providing care in general, not just with this person, but...
I think since I was about 23, I'm 42 now, a long time. I've done other things, but mostly caregiving.
Yeah.
Schizophrenic, developmentally disabled, aged patients for a short time, cerebral palsy, a woman who had stroke. I worked with a woman who was born with polio. Just her personal assistant. So I didn't do very much health things with her. I just helped her organize her house and keep her on everything. Working with developmentally disabled was, I think, the hardest and sort of the funnest because there were 6 to 12 people, and you would go on outings all the time. Like you would go for walks.
So a little bit different kind of caregiving, really.
Yeah, totally different. And in a facility too, and in a 6-person house, which was a lot different.
So where did you learn all of the skills to provide care for somebody with spinal cord injury?
That was the job. Well, for spinal cord injury, I think it was basically like assisting belts, learning how to use a Hoyer. Let me see, when was the first time I used a Hoyer? It was years ago. But I think just basically getting a job where a friend worked years ago that didn't take a lot of physical care, but was just diabetic charts, insulin, simple things like that. They could do most things by themselves. They didn't need help. They just needed their meals cooked and to be taken places.
Yeah,
And then,
so a little bit different, providing the level of personal care that you provide for the person you work with now.
Totally.
So tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you face in working with somebody with spinal cord injury, in terms of the physical challenges or the emotional challenges.
There's all of them, really. I have to really pay attention to my lower back. I can't reach over the bed and pick up a leg, although I do it sometimes because I get in a hurry. But it tells me later on that day or the next day that I shouldn't do it again. But that's really the only physical thing, other than having so much to do in a 2-hour span. You know what I mean? Because you have to just be going, and sometimes you have 5 things going at once. And the man I work for is really good at reminding me. He's really good at making lists. He's really good at letting go of things that don't get done and realizing that everything can't get done. The emotional challenges, I think they run the deepest, because physical is just body, and that's something or other. I guess that's the hardest part. The hardest part is understanding what another person's going through, and what I'm going through at the same time. There's a lot of hard times this Christmas, at Thanksgiving and stuff. There was a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of expectations, and we had to learn to be a lot more clear on what we wanted and what we expected. And we had to talk about it, and that was hard. Because Christmas is an emotional time for everyone. You don't know if somebody's lost a parent or a family member or a friend, and there's always a lot that's going on. Like the last woman I had who had 2 strokes in 6 months and lost her right side functionalness, she asked God to kill her every day when I went to work. She would ask God why he had forgotten her. And that was emotional.
Yeah.
And that was really hard to deal with. And then her family, they had 3 children, all homeschooled, and 1 was autistic. And she was in their house, and that was extremely hard for them. And really, she felt that, and so she didn't want to be there. She didn't want to be alive in that situation. She would rather have passed. But then she moved to Korea for Christmas, back with family, really good health care, totally different person. Her dementia went away.
So it sounds like it makes a lot of difference, kind of what the person's situation is and how you can relate to them.
Totally.
So in terms of that, it sounds like communication is a big part of this, and that's something actually I heard from all of you guys. How do you feel like you personally facilitate the communication, or do you really leave it up to the person that you work with?
It always depends. Sometimes it's body, like he'll be like, you're kind of making faces at me today, I've been noticing, like you're not really comfortable with what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it. Or if I have something, the man that I work with, I think we have a special relationship. To me, it's a special relationship. And so we joke around a lot. And that kind of helps get some of that stuff out too. Yeah. And then sometimes we have an explosion, and it's just like, why are you doing this? Or, I'm sorry, or, and then there's things on my side where I don't realize I should apologize. Right. Because to me, I feel pressure, you know what I mean? So I feel like, well, I did my best, well, I apologize, but instead it's an emotional relationship. We have to say you're sorry. Yeah. And I understand that very well, too, because my daughter's 18, and we're going through a lot of that, so it's good for us.
Absolutely. You're learning it in all phases of your life. Yeah. So what would you consider the biggest factors in job satisfaction for you?
Completion. I worked with another man in Georgia who, when I applied for the job, he said, I want to be physical, I want to be active, I want to get to walking. When I got to his house, he wanted to go to the mall, and that was it. And so it was super unfulfilling, and I had to tell him that if he wasn't going to exercise, if he wasn't going to try to evolve as a human being, then I wasn't going to work with him anymore. And that's how it ended up. So for me, there has to be a positive outcome, or else it just feels like I should be working at Burger King, you know what I mean? And
It could be about the same, I
yeah,
suppose.
totally. And at some points, the same pay, you know?
Absolutely. So one of the couple things you mentioned in terms of, kind of your own stuff that you bring to work every day, like everybody does, but it's a little different when it's just one-on-one.
Yes.
And also you mentioned the physical piece of it. How do you engage in self-care? Because it seems like that's a really key piece in all of this.
I go walking every day. And if I don't go every day, it's every other day. But I go to the park and at least sit and read or just pick up shelves. Because I know if I don't get that energy out, because I'm kind of nervous anyway and high strung and I like coffee. And so if I don't work that out before I get there, then I just bring it home, you know. And I do sometimes. And they'll be like, whoa, you're at 11, you know. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But I have to go walking or I have to do something, you know. And especially in Washington, you have to get outside or else you'll just box in.
Yeah, too many boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Amanda, can you tell me a little bit about the person that you care for, about their level of injury, kind of how many hours they need care, and what personal care you provide?
Kenny's a C3, C4. He does 24/7 care. I do 40 of it, roughly a week. Bladder, bowel, pretty much anything that he needs help with as far as living day to day.
So what kind of, you say 40 hours a week, is that a couple days a week? I mean, what is your shifts like typically?
It spans over, I go in and I stay for a couple of days and then I go home. So they I pack them together. I live an hour away from him, so it's easier.
Yeah.
So it saves in driving time.
So how many people are on the team
I'm
then?
one
Because
of
if it's
6.
Okay. And does everybody work similar shifts, or does everybody kind of have different
They have different
patterns?
hours. It depends on if they're students or if they are, part-time, if they're just looking for something 1 day a week or 2 days a week. It just depends on the person, I guess.
So if you're there for a couple days at a time, you're involved in everything. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you end up getting into caregiving? Is this like something you've always done, and have you done
It's
it
just
in this
something
way?
I fell into. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
You come upon it and then it's like, boom, you've got something to go for.
So what other kinds of populations have you worked with?
Special needs, adults, children, Alzheimer's, dementia, kind of a little bit of everything. It just, it depended on what job, if it was a facility, if it was a home, depended on where I was living at the time.
Yeah. Did you have experience with spinal cord injury before you started working with
I actually grew up with a great uncle that was a C5, C6 from Vietnam. So I did have a little bit, but not hands-on experience.
So you at least kind of understood the level of function?
I understood the level of function to a little bit. Now things are a little bit different. I mean, I've never seen him get out of bed, and I never seen him in a power chair. So he was bedbound his whole life. So it is different, but it is the time as well.
Yeah, so a very different experience of how you spend your time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in terms of kind of training for bowel, bladder, all those kind of getting dressed, getting bathed, all those kind of things, how did you get your training?
Do it. Sink or swim. That's kind of how it went.
Yeah. So was that with Kenny that you learned?
It was with Kenny. The bladder, I had previous experience before, as far as the bowel program and things like that. That was kind of Kenny showing us how to do it, and then another caregiver would show you first, and then second time it was all on you. Eventually you figure it out.
I'm sure you probably had to. So tell me a little bit about kind of the challenges that you have seen. Like you had mentioned that physically working with Kenny hasn't been as difficult because of his setup. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, he has his overhead lift, so there's not very much lifting. I mean, if we pull him back, he's not a particularly heavy guy, so I've never noticed any aches and pains. I mean, if you twist your body mechanics, you twist your body the wrong way, of course it's going to hurt. But overall, I mean, with the system, the tracking system, and the system that he has set up as far as the way to turn him, roll him, it's pretty simple.
Okay, so how about, I mean, Charles mentioned kind of the emotional piece. Okay, you're together for 24 hours a
We
day?
want to kill each other sometimes. That's emotional. Is that not allowed to say that on
No,
camera?
you should say that. That's what you should be saying about.
Yeah,
I mean, it's personalities. I mean, you have personalities that fit together really well and you're best friends, and then you have others that even though you're friends, you still just want to kill each other sometimes. But at the end of the day, you talk it out and you get over it and go on to the next one.
so Charles talked about, having a relationship that is beyond just a boss and worker kind of relationship. And you mentioned friends. How would you describe how you guys manage in that relationship?
For 3 years, we spent almost, sometimes it was 80 hours a week together. You get to be friends with somebody you spend that much time with. You know, in every aspect of their life, they know almost as much of yours. I mean, it's kind of hard not to be friends.
So tell me about, for you, what you prize in terms of job satisfaction. How do you make sure that you are satisfied in your job?
I think he was right when he was saying completion. Getting something done, that's satisfaction.
Kind of making sure that everything's kind of wrapped up before you end your shifts, or make sure you accomplish something in a day.
Yeah, you're there for a certain amount of time. You should get something done. I mean, don't just leave and there's like, oh, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. No.
Yeah. So what do you do for self-care? Do you feel like that's important?
I do feel it's important. Everybody should have something they enjoy doing. I like bowling and bingo, surprisingly. I like reading, and I like being by myself. So I think those are important things to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And it sounds like very different in terms of having some time every day to take care of yourself versus for you, when you're on, you're kind of on.
Yeah.
So is there things that you do kind of during shifts to kind of engage in self-care?
I
Or do
shower
you-
there.
What?
I shower there.
Well, of course. I mean, other than the basic needs, of course.
It's not one of those things that's like Charles said, it's 2 hours in the morning or 2 hours at night. I mean, it's not constant go, go, go. I mean, there is downtime.
Right, so you
Sit
kind
down-
of take that.
Yeah, take the downtime when you can.
Absolutely. One of the things that we had talked about that's a little different is that Kenny's now dating. And so when you're on, how do you guys manage that?
She was actually a caregiver before they started dating, and we already had a previous relationship before that. So it was like, okay, well, yeah, she's there, but we all knew her beforehand. It wasn't like an outsider coming in, so we weren't trying to kill her behind her back. Now we just do it to her face because we're friends.
So you're all in the same humor.
Yeah.
Seems to be a really
Yeah,
important
you've
factor
gotta,
for
you've gotta have
everybody, it
humor.
sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, we're planning a road trip. I mean, we're going to spend, X amount of time. We're going to be gone for, 2 weeks. We're going to be in a van together, in a hotel together. You have to spend, it's just like spending time with Kenny. I mean, if she's going to be there, or if he's going to be there, she's going to be there.
Yeah. So how do you manage the personal time, the time away and the time together when you're, when he's with her and you're on, or do you even have to worry about that?
I think it's just something that comes naturally. I mean, when somebody needs alone time, you back out and go somewhere else. Don't have to stay right up on them all the time.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Charles, have you traveled at all with the person you work with?
No.
You mentioned traveling. How do you guys do that? It sounds like you have at least 2 caregivers. How do you guys manage
The
that?
previous time we went, there was just myself and another caregiver. And then this time, it's going to be me, the other caregiver, and Kenny's girlfriend.
So how do you guys work those details out? Just because I think people will be interested in that, of how do you manage to travel? Because one of the things we do here is that people don't feel like they can.
Yeah.
So-
Well, one, we drive. There's no flying involved. And me and the other caregiver are friends outside of work, and we do work really well together. So I think we've built up a really good system. I mean, we can have Kenny up and out the door, with all care, and loaded up in the van and ready to go off in a couple hours. It's just one of those systems that you have to build up to get to that point.
So when you go away then, how long are you guys going for this time?
This time it's like 2 weeks.
So you'll be on pretty much that whole time.
I mean,
in terms of
there's
your
downtime,
sharing.
and I mean, his girlfriend is going with us this time, so it is a little bit different than
Yeah.
last.
So of course you get downtime, but you're together.
Yeah.
Or will you go away for
Oh
parts
no,
of
we're
that?
together.
Okay. So how will you manage that when you get back? I mean, do you then just go back to your regular schedule?
The
Do you
shifts
take-
pick up just as
Just
whatever
as
day of
if-
the week, whoever comes in, comes in.
Okay. So it kind of just goes right back to normal.
Yeah, it goes right back to normal.
Great. All right. So switching Jeannie. So she works for your son.
Yes.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit about, I'd like to start with you a little bit about kind of the early days, because for you, it wasn't a choice. This
No.
isn't a job for you. And how long had it been since Kenny was injured before you got involved with him?
It'd be 11, it was 10 February? 8.
About 8 years, yeah.
8 years or so?
That this team, yeah, has been involved. We got caregiving early, about 3 weeks after he got hurt. But I mean, we were just in a fog. I mean, I didn't know people lived after they broke their neck. I didn't know what caregiving was. I didn't know that PT and OT came to your house. I mean, those first couple weeks home, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And then we did get caregiving through an agency, and we started with that about 3 weeks out. And then I always had some caregiving, like 6 hours a day, 10 to 4. Tried to get caregiving at night from 10 to 3 in the morning, because he would sleep about every other day. So I would try to get sleep during that time.
So a very different experience from where he's at now and traveling and considering. So tell me a little bit about kind of being mom. You mentioned kind of feeling like when you got home, he was back to being kind of the infant you brought home many years
we talked
earlier.
about that, yeah. It's like bringing a newborn home. You know, he couldn't do anything, you know. And here he just graduated from college, was a wrestler, I mean, and then this. So, yeah, it was really tough. You know, and Kenny would say he felt like he was just a head, you know, because there was nothing that worked. So that was really hard. And, but an infant that could talk. But, you know, it was just right. Thrown into depression right away. I mean, it was really hard because this isn't what I wanted for his life. Certainly not what he wanted for his life. And at that point, we're living just day to day. You know, we couldn't really look to next week. You know, we knew it was coming, but how we were going to get there, we didn't know. And we knew how to do everything when we came home, but you really didn't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, so it was tough.
Tell me a little bit about that. So when he was in inpatient rehabilitation, you learned to provide care for him.
Yeah, I stayed 24/7 during the week. His dad would come in on Friday and Saturday night because he went back to work. Once we left Harborview at 19 days, he went to an inpatient, Good Sam, so I stayed. And mostly just to make sure they took care of him.
Yeah.
And mistakes could happen, you know. And at that time, he was vented. So it was a scary, scary time, and I was scared he'd come home on the vent, so really trying to learn that. And we did learn, but there was still things he didn't want me doing. He didn't want me to do the BOW program, and so I didn't, you know, and let the
So
nurses
you
do
never
it.
learned that.
Not in the hospital, I didn't. And so we had this meeting the night, I think it was a day or two before we went home, and we had some nurses that agreed to come do it at home, but the hospitals don't like that idea. And so he's like, she's not going to do it. And the social worker's like, somebody's going to have to do it because you can't go home. And we're like, well, I'm not going to do it. And so we just kind of battled. It was a battle. They weren't happy that he was going home and I wasn't doing it. And I kind of got thrown into it like the caregivers do.
Yeah.
I think it got to be a nurse couldn't come that day. And it's like, okay.
Which is why we encourage people to at least learn it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah, but
once you
when
do
you're
it,
in the moment, it's
yeah.
very hard to be open to that when neither one of you, I'm sure you were fine with it, but you're trying to be respectful of your
Right.
adult child.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a kid, you
Yeah.
know. And he did voice, you know, he felt like he was 6 again. He lost control of everything. I mean, I'd bring him dinner, and it was what I made, and I fed him whatever I chose to take off the plate. I mean, he lost control of everything. So that was tough. It was really tough. So the early years were pretty depressed, and then we've talked that I probably helped the depression more because You don't want to arrange today? That's okay. No. You don't want to get up? Okay, but the caregivers would come in and they would arrange him and do things. So gradually we got out of that. But it took a long time, and he suffered some DQ issue sores right away. So he was in bed, I don't know, over a year, 2 years.
With pressure ulcers.
Pressure ulcers, yeah. And then he'd get better, and then he got them again, and a lot of kidney stone issues. Just seemed like we were constantly having those kind of issues.
So a lot of different kinds of health issues, plus just not really wanting to do much of anything.
No, he didn't. He didn't want to do much, and he would say so and say, I don't want to be here anymore. And I didn't have a plug to pull. So we'd barter. We'll do today and tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens. So eventually it got better. I mean, we got more caregiving in, different personalities, younger people. And then he wants to go to the show with his mother. He wants to go. And so they started getting out. He had buddies, really good buddies, who would come and take him to the show, start getting him out, being used to being in the public again. And then he was able to, he was in a relationship, and they decided, they came home and said they wanted to move out. And
How
I'm
did
like,
that go?
Okay, let's see. I knew this person. I was so happy. It was perfect to me. She knew his care. She knew everything. And so he said, well, I'll stay home for a couple, I'll only go move out a little bit and come back and forth a couple days here. And I said, you can't with your equipment. I mean, we can't have 2 air beds. We can't, and so they did.
We can't get a U-Haul to go back and forth every
Right,
couple of
yeah,
days.
back and forth.
Just go to mom's for a couple days.
And so they got an apartment close to us, and she was in school at the time, so I would go over and caregive while she would go to school. And then he had other staff too that would work. And then, so he got used to being independent there. And then he ended up getting his own home, and so now he has 24-hour care. I don't do anything.
So how long has it been since you provided any care?
I think it was about the
2 years, 6
8-year mark, about 8 years.
Yeah.
Mark that he got out on his own, yeah. And it feels really good, yeah. He doesn't call me to fill in. I panic. It's like, he'll say, well, so-and-so's going to, Mom, I got it, But they never call me. And I have a hard time when I go there, I do it my way, and I'm really good. They got it. They've got it. He's really lucky. He has a really good team. I'm really comfortable, and back to being mom.
So tell me how it was that you were able to let go, because it sounds to me that in those first several years that even though you had people come in, it really was the two of you.
It was. And his dad, my husband's there.
Yeah.
But I was it.
But it sounds like you were kind of the hands-on
I was it.
for the
Yeah.
big chunks of time.
Yeah. And there was tough times. I mean, there was nights, especially when he first came home. I mean, I literally stood next to his bed or his door because I'm like, he can do this, but I don't know if he can. So I'll stand here. And my husband would get up to go to work, and I'd be still standing there, And then I kind of progressed to the couch, and then slowly got away where he could do this on his own. So I wasn't going to live as long as he was. So I knew that I couldn't do this forever. So I knew we were headed that way. So I don't think I really had a problem letting go. People say, oh, geez, what are you doing now? I still hear his name, him calling me in the middle of the night. I still sit up and go, oh, he's not here, because I'll hear, hey, Mom.
Yeah.
But I think I did pretty well, I mean, he was in a relationship, and I think whether he's in a chair or not, those have challenges. I mean, it's a new woman in his life, and us trying to figure that out. But, but with Kenny, I mean, yeah, he doesn't move, but once you're around him, you forget, it doesn't, it's just normal to me, except for just get up, would you?
Yes.
Just move, But I have 3 granddaughters, and so they spend a lot of time with him. And early on, I think that was a lot of help getting him moving through depression a little bit. We always involved them. And boy, if we had an activity with the kids, he was going.
Yeah,
so
he would always be willing to
yes.
hang out with Mom if that was the case.
With the kids, yeah. So that kind of helped with the depression too. So I'm perfectly happy where he's at, and
Yeah.
he's not very far. I think if I go one way, it's 17 minutes, and if I go the other way, it's 20 minutes, in case, because I'm always panicky if there's an emergency, but they've got it.
Yeah.
We've been really fortunate. We've had really good caregivers.
Well, and it sounds like there was a real shift between you directing caregivers and Kenny directing caregivers.
Yes, and the depression thing and all that, I think I had a lot to do with too as well. I did treat him like he was 6. Now he orders all his supplies. I was doing everything for him. I mean, everything, and he can do it all. And I didn't ask him to or encourage him to. His
You were just
supplies
mom.
that was my mom, and supplies appeared. He didn't have to worry about it. And now he does everything. There's nothing what he should be doing, So I feel like that transition to being out, that's what he should be doing. It's more difficult than it would have been if he was able-bodied, but he's doing more than I thought he'd be doing, really.
It sounds like you both struggled with depression. How were you at engaging in self-care in those early days?
No, I don't know what that is. I'm still having a hard time with that. I'm a mom, I started bowling. I started bowling again. I was bowling before I got hurt. Now I get out. I have time. I have the grandkids. And
Well, it sounds like now you kind of have your back to your
I do, yeah.
mother and son relationship where you see each other regularly, but you're not involved in the day-to-day.
No.
Yeah.
And it's weird to be at the mall and run into him. It's like, what are you doing here? How did you get here? Because I'm not used to that.
Yeah. Just running into him out in public.
Yeah. I'll come around the corner, he's there. And I'm like, really? But now we're in a really, really good place, but it took a long time to get there.
Yeah. In terms of kind of changing your relationship, what do you think it took to kind of get back to being mother and son? What did you have to do in order to make that happen?
Well, him moving out really helped, the physical aspect, not doing everything for him. And even when caregivers were there, I was still preparing his meals and doing all that kind of stuff. And so now he's out doing what he needs to do. I don't know that I did much of any of that because it was kind of like, we're moving,
Yeah.
But I never really felt like after he left, like he needed to come back, Even when there was time maybe that he could have moved back, things weren't going to work or something. Maybe he needs to move back. And in my head, it's like, why?
Right.
He's learned this independence, and it's just a step back to do that. So it was never, I feel like I was doing pretty well. You're depressed. This is not what, I don't know when the grieving of what could have been his life without this injury. I think that's going to be stuck with you forever. But he's doing so well. I think it'd be different if he was not doing well.
In terms of the depression, did you guys get help with that when you were in the hospital or when you were out of the hospital? Did anyone kind of go, by the way, this looks like what's going on and there are people who can help?
No. Well, he had one guy at Good Sam, and just didn't work. He treated him like he was 6. And like, what'd you have for breakfast this morning, Kenny?
Yeah.
That was about as intense as it got with the conversation with the guy. And so I'm going to counseling now. I've been going about 3 years and started going to counseling for that. But at that time, no. And you really feel like you're in your own world, because when we would have home health come, which is one of my pet peeves with this HIPAA law thing, the home nurses would come and I'm like, is there other people out there? And they're like, oh yeah, I have 5 right in this area. And I'm like, where are they? How do they live? And well, we can't tell you.
Yeah.
And that frustrated me, because anywhere you go in public, you rarely see someone with that high of an injury. And you're not alone, but you are. You're just there.
It feels like it.
It does, because you really don't have support. And I'd come up to these or talk to caregivers that maybe have done a quadriplegic before, but for the most part, anybody that we got didn't. And so we were just training them ourselves. So I don't think there is that much help. I think now with the internet, I think technology is huge. We can connect, and with what Kenny's doing now, you know, he has get-togethers where caregivers and families go in one rooms and the guys in the chair go in the other rooms, and it gets pretty crazy. You know, the people talking about what goes on at home and, you know, how they can't handle it or they can handle it. But at least we have a voice now that we can talk. And in one instance, we had not too long ago, this little girl got hurt, gymnastics, hurt. She was in Harborview, and it was Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving, and the gym owner called me because I'm friends with her. Says, you have to go to Harborview today. This little girl got hurt. You got to go talk to their parents. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I can't do that. This is too early. I can't talk to them. I just can't do that. And I'm driving here, and it's the day before Thanksgiving. There's 3 wrecks. I don't know. It took me hours to get there, but something told me that I needed to go. And I got to the waiting room and met the grandmother, and then I met the father. And what do you say to them? You know, she's 16. So I had a picture of Kenny, and I just said, I'm living this life. So I'm here. So I feel like that's my mission now, is to talk to families and say, you know, we're out here.
Yeah.
You know, here's my phone number. And many times I'd get a text from her mom, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, is she sad? Is she crying? Is she this and that? She, yeah, all of the above. And I'm like, yeah. So let's just talk. There's nothing you can do, you know. So I didn't have that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think trying just to connect, you know, because there are people out there.
Yeah, makes
It's
a big
just finding
difference.
them. Yeah.
And hopefully this will help.
I think it is helping.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
So Laura, tell us about your husband in terms of his level of injury and kind of how much care he needs. And
I think he's 5'6".
okay, I love that you're not even sure. That's awesome.
He's my husband.
Yes, exactly.
So he needs care with bowel program, catheter, getting dressed, meals, and getting to bed at night. So during the day, he prefers to be by himself, or he's been going to classes at the UW, so he's got his own thing going. And then, so we have a caregiver when I'm at work. So she's 26, 27 hours a week. And then I do evenings and weekends.
So tell me about kind of that initial training for you, that initial experience, because in some ways, the experience is similar of this is just such a shock and this isn't what you were expecting and it's completely new. I'm assuming you also didn't have any prior experience with spinal cord injury. We never did talk about that, but
I know.
given
No,
everything
I
you said,
I didn't leave Harborview. I just stayed there, and the nurse is like, oh, well, here, give him his warfarin or whatever that shots. And I'm like, okay, and I'm injecting him, and then she's like, oh, do you want to do the bowel program? I'm like, sure. And then next I was doing his bowel program and showers and getting him dressed, and I think they appreciated it because they had 4 patients. And you just sit and wait for somebody, I'll just do this myself. And I figure I better learn from these people because they're the best. So I knew pretty much everything.
so at this point, in terms of kind of, for you, it sounds like you do some of the care still all the time, but one of the things you mentioned to me is that you don't feel like the caregiver label fits you.
No,
Why is that?
because I'm not a caregiver. I'm married to somebody that needs care. I don't feel like I'm a caregiver. It's like if you're married to a diabetic, you'd pay attention to something. So I don't feel like it's a label that fits me.
So you're the wife.
I'm a wife,
Yeah.
and he's my husband.
Yeah.
And he takes care of me too. He's a caregiver, so why should I be the caregiver?
So how did that happen? Because it seems like, I mean, for most people, and I'm assuming it's true for you too, when you guys got home from the hospital, he wasn't where he's at now of being able to do things completely on his own Or is he? Has he still
That-
evolved? And
That was the wild ride. It's sort of like being on the Matterhorn and you're strapped in for like 3 weeks and you sort of have to like shut that off. Don't go there. Not taking that ride again. So that was a little wild.
yeah.
I admit that was crazy stuff.
What do you think was some of the kind of highlights of that? Because as people think about that Discharge Home, it's a pretty, I mean, it sounds like it took you, Jeannie, about 3 weeks before you guys kind of got into any kind of routine. You're mentioning 3 weeks of wild ride. So how did you find caregivers up on the front end? Were you sent home with people, or how did you guys do that?
We found some agency before we were discharged because I had to go back to work. It was like spring break, so I had like a couple days to get something lined up, and I took a couple days off, and I would sort of like show up to work a little bit late, and everybody was cool with that at work. And then so we had an agency coming, and I think it was like 4 hours, and then I'd pop home at lunch because I worked 2 blocks away. So I felt like, you know, I wanted to keep my job because I wanted the benefits. I thought about just quitting, but I thought, no, I don't really want to do that. I like going to work. I like that separation. Leaving the house for 8 hours was a lot, but you know, I'd pop home at lunchtime. And then we just ended up hiring caregivers because this agency thing, they said, oh, we don't have anybody. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'd like call in sick, and then we just started hiring people on our own.
So how many people now do you guys have that provide care?
Just one.
Just the one person during the week, and then you do the evenings and weekends?
Yep.
So tell me about the challenges that you guys have faced, and how do you face those challenges? How do you take care of yourself?
Well, and he takes care of me too, and like he's like, you haven't gone to spin class, so you're going tonight. I'm just like, oh God, I just want to lay on the couch. It's like, no. So he's like, when you're worn out, then I'm happy. So it's like, okay. And then we started seeing a rehab psychologist here. And she's like, Laura, you need to go to band. Because I used to play in band. She's like, you need to start band again. I'm like, I can't. And it's like 2 hours on Monday night. So.
And are you doing that?
Yes, I am.
So you
She's
were
my
you followed
boss.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that I need to do that.
Yeah. How did you guys get connected with Rehab Psychology? Because it sounds like you guys didn't find that, or didn't find the right connection. Do you remember how you found that?
No.
But you were recommended.
Yes.
It was recommended
And
just to
it's
help you guys.
fantastic, yeah. And I wasn't aware that I needed it, but somebody just said, oh, you should do this. And I was like, really? It's like, do I have an hour? Like, my day is slotted. Now I look forward to it, you know.
Yeah. So how often do you guys
We
see
just
her?
go like every 5 or 6 weeks, sort of check up. It used to be like I was a meltdown mess, and we were like fixing me. I'm like, he's the patient. Why is this important, you know? But,
Why is it important?
well, she says, happy wife, happy life. So, yes, I am special.
Do you feel like that's true? That taking care of yourself and kind of doing some of these things has made things better for you guys?
Yes,
In what way?
because it's a unit, and we have to run smoothly. Sort of like Kenny said, we have to have everything going. You don't want a cog stuck. Everything has to keep moving, and I'm part of that, so.
Yeah. So what advice, I'm going to start with you, Laura, what advice would you have for people who are, you know, kind of in the situation that you were in, of that their spouse was injured and they're trying to figure out the balance and trying to figure out what to do next?
It's just, you got to go with the flow, first of all. There is no flow some days, and that's okay. You can't just have these expectations like I used to have, like everything's going to be perfect. That doesn't work. But the big picture is just like, how is it going, you know? It's just amazing. People, you have to take advantage of like opportunities of meeting people. You have to stop and just look at each other and go, this is okay, you know? It's all good, so.
Yeah. How about you, Jeannie? What advice would you give to parents who have a child that's been injured? You mentioned a little bit, but what kind of advice would you give to them in terms of what you learned somewhat the hard way, maybe?
Yeah, I did learn. Well, that it's going to be okay. Nobody could have told me that early on. I didn't know what okay meant, but it's okay. And like you say, every day's different. Some days are hard, some days are good. You're going to make it. Get help. Caregiving's important. You hear so many people trying to do it on their own. It can't be done. I mean, it's not good. It's not good for them. It's not good for you. And luckily, Kenny never bucked the system as far as caregiving. He was receptive to it. He wasn't like, I don't want a caregiver. It was more me. What do I do? Caregiving in your house, when you have someone in your house, there's only so much you can have them do. An agency, they tell them there's only certain things they can do, and they can't do a bowel program and certain things like that. So we got away from the agency. Plus the same thing with you. Some caregiver would call in sick, and they knew I was there, so they would call and say, we have nobody else. So, your day is just kind of like, well, I guess I'm home. So, but really get the caregiving in. The caregiving is important. It's important for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a couple, actually, questions from both perspectives for you guys. What advice would you, both from kind of family side, what advice would you give to families about caregiving? And also, what advice would you give for somebody hiring caregivers, somebody with a spinal cord injury, as they think about kind of hiring people? So,
as far as hiring and experience, if they don't know anything, it's probably better.
so less experience.
Less
is actu-
experience has, from what I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, it seems to work better. You can teach somebody your own system instead of somebody coming in and telling you what they already know and trying to do it their way instead of the way that you want it done, that's easiest and works for you.
And what about in terms of kind of working with families? Because I think a lot of these issues come up of concerns about doing it the way we always do it, or doing it, or being in someone's home and they're not used to having, quote unquote, you're not a stranger for very long. Obviously, you guys have both very clearly described that. But, for people kind of thinking about how do you let somebody else in, how do you let somebody else care for your loved one?
Mutual respect. You have to realize you're there for your job. That's still their home at the end of the day. Like, you go home to yours, that's where they live. As far as family, you're not strangers for long. You get to know each other.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Charles? What kind of advice do you have for people who are hiring, as well as for kind of families thinking about how to negotiate this?
I think for hiring, you should see how it feels, how it literally feels. Like if you meet someone at a restaurant and there's 4 people at a table, you're going to automatically go to a certain seat because you feel most comfortable next to that person. And you're going to stay away from certain seats. I was just at a party in San Diego last weekend where there was a group of people that I really wanted to sit with, but there was a couple of people that just totally made me uncomfortable. So I didn't sit with those people at all. And so I think a good long conversation will show you if you really feel comfortable with someone or not. If they seem like they're lying to you, if they're always looking away, or if they're looking at their phone, well, that's what they're going to do at your house. I don't know how many people I've worked with that are, 40 feet behind what's going on. That's why I don't like working with agencies, actually, because I had spent most of my time just picking up after people instead of taking care of someone. I didn't like that. And working with families, I've worked with all kinds of different families at this point. I've worked with families that hated the person they were taking care of and they didn't want them there at all.
That must be really challenging.
It was really challenging because on one side they tried to let him control the situation and he was really bad at it.
Yeah.
Really bad at it. And I ended up not working with him because it was just so rough. He would be like, do it now, I'm your boss, And I was older than him, but not that much, and I would just be like, no, that's not my job. I'm sorry. You know, maybe if you had said it differently, I would, no problem, do it. I do 20 of those things if you said it the right way. If you try to tell me what to do, I don't work like that. I'm a person. I'm here because I want to be here, not because I have to be here. So.
It does sound like, you know, you all have talked about that of being able to relate to the person that you're working with, whether it's your spouse and communicating with them, or your child, or somebody who's employing you, that it's really important to have that back and forth about it and not feel like you're just being ordered around, and that there's mutual respect. I think, Amanda, you used that term. Any other thoughts or comments? I mean, there's so many more things, but we're already, you know, at the time that I wanted to open up for questions. But any other things that you feel like are really important that we talk about so I don't miss anything? Kind of had covered the high points.
Things take time, I guess. That would be all I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot is healed with time.
Absolutely. All right, other questions from the audience? I'll let you guys ask for a while. Yes.
Where do you find these caregivers?
Perfect. Where do you find caregivers? What is your recommendation of how to find people?
They know.
I
Yeah,
guess it
I was gonna
depends
say.
on what kind of caregiver you're looking for. I know through Kenny, he found several of us on a website called care.com, and you can have a membership, but you can go in there and look for elderly care or special needs care. We've had a couple work out that have actually just been babysitters because they didn't know anything. I've heard some people do use Craigslist, newspapers, putting the word out on Facebook even, but I guess it just depends on what you're looking for as far as coverage.
Nursing students.
Nursing students.
We've had nursing students, and then they all have a friend, and that's how we get a lot of them. Is, you know, and a lot of times it's just 1 or 2 shifts a week. They don't want a lot of time. You know,
Right.
that's great. Take them.
I looked for them. I've always looked for people.
Huh?
I've
So
never really
people who
tried.
advertise on like Craigslist,
On Craigslist and sites like that.
or care.com, have you used that before?
I think I did years ago, but I
Yeah.
don't remember. That was back when I really didn't like banks. I didn't really like agencies. I didn't really want to be told how to do this or that because it didn't seem like they knew what they were doing.
So it made a big difference too. And it sounds like word of mouth, both on the side of finding other caregivers, but also word of mouth on finding other people to care for.
Yes.
I think, Charles, you mentioned that you actually got connected with people because you knew somebody who needed care from somebody else who needed care.
Yeah,
and-
my roommate worked there. And that was the first place I worked at.
Yeah, so
That was-
making those connections that way. Does that help? Yeah, Ed?
Yeah, Charles. Yeah. You mentioned working with a VA patient. Do you do that regularly? And what's your experience working with them? I'm one myself.
So the question was about kind of working with somebody who has VA benefits and works and through the VA. What's been your experience with that, and is that something you've done a lot of, or is the person you're working with the only person?
Working with the individual is awesome. Working with a VA is completely horrible. I'll have to say, I've had many problems. I still don't get paid on time. They don't call you back. Even with the catheter situation the other day, I talked to 5 people before I got who I needed to talk to. And I actually had to keep hanging up and calling back. That's kind of my thing. I haven't had very good luck with agencies. And really, my situation is a little different, I think, than most people, and I think most people would have, or at least some people would have quit by now and not had a diligence.
Well, I was going to say, if you're not getting paid on time, that's often a big issue for most people.
I'm supposed to get paid on the 1st. Today's the 11th.
Yeah,
I still haven't gotten paid.
yeah,
So, and that's every month.
yeah.
And it was like that last time I worked with a VA. And even some of the training that they had for him to do his muscle exercises built up the muscles so hard in his back that he was just almost in constant pain. So then we had to reverse all that when I came back, because I moved to Atlanta for 3 years and then came back and started working with them again. And just had to sort of get away from what they had told him to even do. So I haven't had the best experience with that.
So what are you guys' recommendations for the power differential that happens between somebody who's trying to direct their own care and the relationship of wife, mother, friend? So struggling with the whole balance of how do you ask for what you need and direct your care when you're trying to be respectful of the fact that you are more on this equal footing. So, I don't know if somebody wants to specifically start. I'd look to you, Jeannie, because I think that's even probably the most complex one of how do you step back from being mom and telling your kid what to do and let your child tell you what to do. So did you guys struggle with that, or did that just kind of happen that it wasn't as much you and more of the caregivers?
And maybe Kenny can address that, I'm not sure.
My situation was very early on. I think I was probably 2 months home, and it was more of a lack of understanding on my family's part of my situation. We were driving in the car, and they thought that they knew what I needed best, and it resulted in a bit of a blow-up where I said, you don't understand how I feel and what it's like. And once they were able to kind of empathize a little bit more and gain a full understanding of what I had going on, and and that is the difficult struggle, the kind of power shift when you have to speak up for yourself, especially with your family, and you've got those dynamics and all the issues that have come 20 some years before that, and but having the courage to speak up for yourself and to speak for yourself is something that's was a struggle for me in the beginning, and I think it's over the course of 11 years it's gotten better, but it's definitely one of those things that I mean, it's all these situations are about communication. It's really about being upfront and clear.
Charles or Amanda, I mean, I think there's the issue about being paid where you're more able to take on that role, but do you ever find that as you become closer to the person that you work with, that there's more of that struggle that happens, of that divide between knowing kind of when to stop and let this person take charge versus kind of jumping in and thinking that you may know what they want or know what they need?
I think Kenny said it best when he said communication. Yeah. I mean, at some point in time, you're not always right. Even though that just killed me to say it a little bit.
How about you, Charles? Have you had that situation at all where you've had to kind of struggle with?
It's daily, because some weeks, some weeks he wants me to make the menu for the meal plans for the week, and then some weeks he doesn't like what I came up with, and some days I just want him to have polenta and black beans, and he doesn't want to have polenta and black beans because he had it last week, or whatever. So it is communication, and sometimes I can tell emotionally how he is, and then if he, says he wants this or whatever, then it's, we all get in bad moods and we all get in good moods, so you just have to be able to pay attention.
So talking about it. Laura, any, I guess the work that you have done to just be husband and wife, it's probably all the same communication things that you know best anyway, right?
I always have like this little secret plan. If I screwed up, I don't say, I'm so sorry, but I go buy olives from Whole Foods.
Were you aware of that?
He doesn't know that.
I think he might now.
So does everyone on there.
We can go cover his ears, but
So
I don't
do
know we can
think
take that back.
There are times when I don't listen to what he's saying, and I should, but I try.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's relationships in general. So does that answer your question? Other questions? Yes.
I would think one of the harder things about being a caregiver, and I realize it doesn't apply to all spinal cord patients, but to many of us, is we require attention during the night. So the caregiver needs to somehow awaken to deal with that. And so I was just curious about how generally a person goes about that and copes with it, just for my information.
Yeah. Charles, does the person that you care for, does he require care throughout the night at all? Helps with turning
Only
or
every
anything?
once in a while. He's pretty good at gear and everything. down, he's got his thermostat checked on, and everything's sort of set up beforehand to make sure that, that I get a good night's sleep, he gets a good night's sleep, and,
So
pillows
how
have-
does he contact you if he needs help?
He yells at me because I'm in
Okay.
the next room.
Yeah. Amanda, how about you?
I'm gonna go with the yelling part. There's a baby monitor right next to my ear, and I snore louder than he can yell sometimes, so it's one of those things. He knows it.
So you yell a little louder.
Yeah, I mean, you eventually, like Kenny said before, you have that one shift where you didn't wake up and somebody's calling you for 20 minutes, and then eventually, it might happen every now and again, but you get used to waiting for somebody to call in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
We found with the night caregivers that we hired, a lot of times they were asleep, and I would hear him, and I'd walk past the sleeping caregiver, and they'd wake up and go, oh, did he call? So my husband hooked up something through the computer that would, so he could sound off a beeper. It did wake everybody in the house up, but it did wake the caregiver up. And that worked, to wake him up, because, we all fall asleep. And some nights I know I didn't wake up. You're beat sometimes and you don't. But if it's bad enough, they're going to wake you up. Or they're, yelling. We always had the baby monitor.
Yeah.
And I'd go out and work in the yard, baby monitor with me all the time. And that's how he contacted me.
Yeah. So, do you have also a setup for Kenny to have turns and things like that? Is that done just through his bed?
He
or?
has an air bed, so he doesn't require it.
Okay.
He sleeps on his back. It's probably more so a head scratching than anything.
Yeah. So other needs, not necessarily
Yeah,
turns.
not more of a turning or.
I want cheese at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Jeez.
That was her. I was gonna let that go.
What do you say when they ask for cheese at 3 o'clock in the morning? You say no?
It's 3 a.m. Give me one.
How about you, Laura?
He wakes me up to turn. So I do a turn at like 12 and at 3.
And then by the time, then what time is get up time in the morning?
I get up at 5:30.
Okay. And then what time does he get up? Because that could be two very different times.
He gets up by, I think it's like 10. He's out. I leave the house at like 7:15 to get to work, and our caregiver comes in at 7:30.
Okay.
So I get him coffee and get him up and do all that.
So you get him up,
Breakfast.
get him going in the morning,
Yeah.
and then he waits for the caregiver for
Yeah.
the rest of the morning
He reads
routine.
the paper and waits. Yeah.
So you're all up early.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, hold on.
I have some family members who, they are a couple, caretaker, and her husband is a quad. And they both seem to be in a really depressed place right now. So I'm trying to find ways to keep connecting and bringing connection. I told them I was coming here tonight, and just ideas. They're pretty resistant to reaching out to SCI community. It's been 11 years, and they're still not, accepting or wanting to associate. So just ideas.
So Jeannie, do you want to start with that? Because it seems like, the struggle of not really knowing how to reach out or what to reach out. Maybe you could speak to kind of your experience.
Right. Well, I didn't have anybody, so I'll give you my phone number and Kenny's website. And sometimes it's just talking to them on the phone and letting them know there's other people out there doing this live. Really encourage caregiving. Is there caregiving in there? That's tough. That's really, really tough. So, somehow introduce some kind of caregiving. Maybe bring them into some of these meetups we have where they can see what a caregiver looks like, and what the benefit could be, because it's huge. Even if it's just a couple hours a day to help getting him up, or move, that's a lot of work. And so we always have 2 people to get him up in the morning. It's faster, it's easier on him, it's easier on the caregiver. And so the night shift overlaps an hour or so into the day shift. 2 hours. 2 hours now.
Yeah.
And so they can, two of them can do it together.
I mean, there are times when there's one person, but it is nice to have that break when you have somebody else that's going to help you. I mean, I don't know what level your family member is, but if you have to do everything in the morning, then it is nice not to be alone in it.
Do they get out at all? Oh. Do they have transportation to get out? Okay.
And I'm sure.
How about you, Laura? Do you have advice or suggestions or thoughts on that?
That's tough. I remember when we were first injured, people kept showing up at the door, and I was like, I haven't brushed my teeth. I had the same clothes on for 3 days, and I was like, sort of embarrassed. And then people just kept barging in, and then I realized, oh, this is okay. So just keep showing up.
So could you talk a little bit more about Kenny's Here and Now project?
Oh yeah, Kenny has started this Here and Now project where he first started, I think, with like 8 guys in chairs that showed up at his house, and I've never seen so many chairs together at one time. And they actually got out in the street and raced up the street in their chairs. I mean, it was quad racing. And all of us mothers and caregivers were like, they can't do this. They can't do this, what are they thinking? And he was bummed because his chair was the slowest one. So, yeah. And so, yeah. And then it evolved to where he rented a place out in Fife, and he just put it out on Facebook that anybody in a chair show up. And he's like, nobody, Mom, really? 29 people in chairs showed up with their caregivers.
Was it over 1,000 years of paralysis in one room?
When they added all the years up, and just the need. And then we're trying to work on a family right now where the girl's been injured 11 years and she wants no caregiving and she wants not to be out. She likes to shop. I see her out and about every once in a while. But so I've got her sister coming, and I had to sit next to her when she walked into the last get-up we had because I don't know, maybe 10 guys in chairs. But it's really emotional to walk in and see other people in chairs when you've been living this life. It's really emotional. But then once you're in it, she's come every time. She's so excited. The rest of her family won't come, but she's coming. She gets her sister up, I think just on weekends. And recently her femur broke when they were transferring her, so she's in kind of a bad spot right now. But we're trying to maybe work on maybe Kenny coming over and seeing they built a beautiful home for her to see what they've got, kind of, and maybe she'll see him like not in the same room, and she's never seen somebody else in a chair too. And I think that's huge, just seeing you're not alone. You're just not alone.
To see someone that's been where you've been.
Yeah.
And happy.
And happy.
Happy.
Yes.
I'm trying to cope with copes. I have a new 40-year-old newborn C5 fracture in August, and have brought him home. And he has Medicaid, which is state insurance, which my husband and I need to bring to bear as much as we can for him. And so we've had our floors washed in Clorox and our dishes done in dog shampoo. And I'm just wondering, is there something out there beyond COPES, and what is an independent contractor?
So do you guys feel comfortable? I mean, I could speak a little bit to this, but do you want to jump in?
I know nothing about COPES. I'm originally from the East Coast, so it is not something that I know anything about. As far as independent contractor, private pay, I'm assuming is what you're talking about? No? Is that COPES? Oh, okay. It's not private, okay.
So it's
yeah,
paid through
this
COPES.
would all be-
Yeah, it's paid through COPES.
So independent contractors are, the thing about COPES is that they will pay agencies to provide care. And so oftentimes that's what people start with because they don't kind of know how to go about doing this. You can, depending on the payment, and I think, Charles, we talked a little bit about, one of the problems with the caregivers at that level is that what the agency is getting paid is very different than what the person who's getting paid. And I believe, Charles, you told me you couldn't live on what agencies typically.
No, especially on the East Coast, they wanted to pay
Yeah.
$9 an hour, and they wanted a 5-year history, and they wanted you to be on call 40 hours a week, and there's just
So
no way.
what people sometimes do then is that they find caregivers who they go through the COPES process to become certified or independent contractors. So it really is hiring folks like Charles and Amanda, and then they are paid through COPES by going through their system. And so from what my understanding is, and probably other people here might be able to speak to this, is that it's closer to being able to hire somebody as if you were paying them yourself, and it's just a matter of going through that process. And my understanding, I don't know what the full process is, but I do know several people who have done that, who have had even friends or family members become COPES caregivers so that they could be part of that team. So, but absolutely, that's a big part, is making sure you have somebody who is a good caregiver and who doesn't necessarily.
Well,
So you get so many hours a month right now?
yeah, we
And-
were allocated 281.
Did you,
And
do you have a good caseworker?
The
You feel
thing is,
comfortable?
the agency isn't able to staff it.
No?
And my son has gone and kept his relationship with his girlfriend. And so if he's not there, Washington law does not allow a agency to care for a person in more than one address, residence. So that is a restriction, and so we're in danger of losing our hours because we're not using them, and it's a double-edged sword, it seems like.
Are you able to be considered one of the COPE?
I have gotten conflicting information because I'm a parent.
I did.
Okay, you were able to?
Yeah, we'll talk afterwards. Yeah,
Okay.
I did not give up all the hours. We had 300 and some hours because I didn't know what to do with them during the
Right.
day. I mean,
Right.
they're sitting there and I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
So I was paid the difference. So I got to
wow.
collect the hours that wasn't used because I was caring for him.
Yes, I'm always there in backup all the time.
Yeah,
And I'm doing all the care because I don't have, the caregivers we're sent do not have the training that I trust
no, they
to
won't.
him.
That's the key part right there.
So that's
Yeah.
the part of the letting it
The
go a
mom
little
thing.
bit and letting
Oh,
him
no.
direct care and not necessarily being mom all
Is
the
he
time.
good at self-directing his care?
He's
It
gotten
is.
a lot better now that he drowned first and
Yeah.
then broke his neck.
Oh,
And so his cognitive wasn't as intact, but it's getting a lot better, and he is even self-directing me,
yes, he did, yeah.
which I'm glad.
That's good, yeah, it is good.
And
It's important.
also, one of the things we learned to do for alerting is we put a wireless doorbell in our house. We put it on his bed, the wireless button, and then stationed the doorbell wherever we needed to be. And it has worked very well for whenever he needed help. His hands are paralyzed, so that's just a hint.
Well, I found with the agencies, a couple of times we'd have one lady that I still laugh about, that they sent this poor gal out, and she's standing by the door and literally shaking, and she's got the care plan in her hand, and it's got everything he could possibly need from, everything in the whole wide world that he would need, and it was all on this paper, and she's like, I've never done it, I'll try my best, and I said, really, all you're going to do is you're going to come in and you're going to sit in the chair, and if he calls you, then you're going to come. And she found, the poor thing, the first caregiver they sent out, they said he was a pair, he could feed himself, he could transfer himself, he could do everything by himself.
Wow.
And I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to follow you around, and he's going to be kind of my science project. And we're like, no, I don't think this is going to work. But they don't, especially with high level. They don't They don't have the experience. They just don't, and they don't pay them enough.
It's not something you see all the time either.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't. I mean, it is $9 or $10 an hour. And the state does have IEPs, individual providers. You can go to the state and get a list of people that you would interview. So I'll help you with that. It's a huge problem, caregiving.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Any last questions? All right. Please join me in thanking these four for participating today.